Hello everyone, welcome back to another edition of the BVI Pilots podcast. It's been a little while. Things have been very busy, and to be honest with you, things have been moving so quickly in the community. If we made a podcast for you on Wednesday, it'd be out of date by Thursday, so there's really been a little point, but we're going to do our best to round things up. As a summary, as you know, the idea of this podcast is to be a bit of a summary of all the facts and little tips that have been picked up over the past couple of weeks. As always, I'm here with Johnny.
Hey, good to talk to everybody. Everybody's doing all right. And, like Declan said, things are kind of just moving along kind of fast. And of course, again, we are both in college, so it's that time right now where, matter of fact, I just got out of my semester, so doing all the, quizzes and finals and all that stuff, and I'm sure Declan's been just as busy on his end.
Finals as well. Yeah.
It's just, and then we again, we don't just come on and do a podcast every single week. We want to come on when we at least got something valuable to talk about. Something, we don't want to bore you, but then we don't want to just talk about something that we just talked about 2 other times. So anyway, it's good to be here, guys.
So the first topic of discussion, and really the main topic of discussion, is the PMDG, which, as if you will know if you're part of the community on any of the groups that we have, has been the main thing over the past couple of weeks and months. Starting out with the 7.3 with TFM and the discovery of other key programs that I'll talk about, and then the 7.4, and the most recent one is the triple. Now, if you're listening hoping for a full tutorial on how to fly the PMDG from A to B, then you are unfortunately in the wrong place. That's not happening here. I can't do that. Johnny can't do that. We'd be here for hours and hours and hours. So that will be down to you. You can read the tutorial that comes with the PMDG. You can search it up on YouTube. There's been, look, here's my take on it. You will always be able to find someone who is descriptive enough that you can use the aircraft. This is the beauty of PMDG. They are paper aircraft, sighted people use them. So there's great YouTube videos. There's great PDF tutorials. There's a tutorial that comes with a plane that will at least help you get set up with the FMC. And there's also a Notepad file which I'm going to be working on with a couple other people to tidy up a little bit and put on bvipilots.com. So that will just have the basics of what you need to do. It's not going to hold your hand, but it'll be, from a fairly beginner's point of view, just to help you along, some little tips.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'll probably pass this along to Declan, and he can put it up there with the other file that he's going to have up there. I believe between what they're going to be kind of, fixing up a little bit, along with this latest one that I found, honestly, and I'm not criticizing or saying you can't do it, but if you can't do it after going through these 2 things, then you really need to, you're going to have to figure out a way, because, you can't just jump into it and just take off. You cannot do that. It's not going to be possible. It's just not going to happen.
No, you're going to have crashes and problems.
Too many.
It will happen.
Yeah, there's just too many things that you got to follow by the book, and you can't change it. You can't, it's not. Well, here, we'll sum it up. It's not freeware, right? It's not going to ignore any of them things that the freeware does. So, anyways, look around. There's stuff everywhere. Check back on the website when Declan gets that part done. That
yeah, there will be something coming.
I'll tidy this up, and then you guys have 2 good files to go by. Seriously.
Yeah, and I can say there will be some streams coming about the PMDG, not holding people's hands, but it will be, me flying it. I'm sure when Johnny gets to grips with it as well. Now we've both got a bit more time, at least I do, over the summer. There'll be some more streams of it. But it really is something that you've got to use your own initiative for. But what I will do is just talk about a few of the key things. So I'm going to sort of, like I said, I'm not going to go through how you would fly it, but here's some of the key points. So obviously we know TFM has support for the CDUs of many of these aircraft. The 7.3, it has support for all of the panels, and that's obviously something that's been a work in progress for a long time, and has been slowly coming along, and it recently kind of got to a stage where it was very flyable. And now the 7.4 has the CDU, and I believe the MCP panel, along with indicators, and the 777 as of Alpha 16, I believe, has the CDU, a couple of indicators, and that's about it. So the triple is very, very new. But I'd recommend for beginners to start with the 7.3. That's pretty much got everything. And it's the easiest one. It's a short-haul aircraft as well. And if you get a good understanding of one, you'll be able to easily transition over to the other. What you might want to do is just load it up on the ground, sit there, program the FMC, close it, and open it again, program another flight. Don't even take off, just do some programming, because there's a lot of steps to set this thing up. Now, what can help you with that is Flight Simulator First Officer Pro. There's been a lot of talk about this, and obviously we don't give opinions on the podcast, but I would strongly recommend, from my point of view, getting this. So this is a program that is designed to help any new pilots, or indeed experienced pilots. Now, you would always have a co-pilot, right, in any of these aircraft. I know people say, oh, I want to flick every switch and button, I want to be realistic. Listen, you would have a co-pilot, right? Just consider that. And there's a lot of steps in these aircraft, especially when you cannot see the array of buttons, dials, and switches that the cockpit has to offer. It's very difficult to keep track of all of those, especially if you're flying on VATSIM, right? We have to understand that when you are visually impaired, I know some people don't want to hear it, but we are at a slight disadvantage. So having something like Flight Simulator First Officer Pro, which can, through its various checklists and flows, set the aircraft up system-wise from cold and dark, ready for takeoff, and continue to manage it for you throughout the flight, that really helps. So it's very useful. It is not an add-on, you don't just leave it and do nothing with it. You've got to do the checklist, and you can certainly watch it go through all the various systems. And it does not do the FMC. The FMC is down to you. But it's certainly very useful, and it essentially performs the role of a co-pilot. So, for example, it can be doing the walk around and setting up the aircraft systems and doing all the checks whilst you are programming the FMC. Things like that. So you're sharing responsibilities.
Yeah, it's and I'll tell you, guys, I just want to give a shout out to George, because George came to me and told me about First Officer Pro. I came over, I talked to Declan and all of them. Didn't really know a lot about it until all of us started downloading it and actually looking at it. At first we're like, I don't know. But then, yeah, it's honestly, it's 100%. And the nice thing about First Officer Pro is the guy that's doing it is active. Like, he's actively paying attention to things that they need fixed. He's fixing it to the best of his ability. He's working on other stuff too, but listen, you're not going to fly a plane without a co-pilot. That's just to be realistic about this. You're not going to fly a 737, a 47, a 777, any of them without a co-pilot. So I think it's perfect the way it is. Imagine, Declan, how long it would take if we had to flip all them switches.
Well, exactly, yeah. It would be doable, but it's all about, if people want to get into the whole realism debate, we are being realistic because we have a co-pilot. And, it certainly doesn't mean just because FSFO is, for example, setting up the aircraft systems, you can just ignore it and forget about it. No, you need to watch what it's doing. You need to make sure it's doing things properly. There are times when FSFO has quirks and bugs. For example, in the 777, it will not establish ground power at the moment. That is a bug, and you have to use the APU to fire the plane up, and the developer knows about this, and he's looking at it, so you can go on the forums.
Just like the 737 did.
Yes, exactly, and that has now been fixed. So you can go on the forums. Unfortunately, the developer, his father got COVID and recently passed away, I believe, so do be aware of that. There's probably going to be good delay, a couple of months, and of course that's very sad, and
Well,
condolences. But so
hold
be
on.
aware
What
of that.
developer of
Of Flight Simulator
which?
First Officer Pro.
The guy?
Yes, the guy. Yeah, yeah.
He passed away?
No, not him. His father.
Oh, okay. Either way, our thoughts go out to the developer. I misheard that. I'm like, what? Wait a minute.
No, not
Either
him.
way, that's
No,
awful.
but yeah. So I'm just saying, I'm just putting that out there because things have
Yeah.
slowed down somewhat on the forum, and people will say, oh, I've put out a post and they said he was going to get back to me, but he didn't. Well, yeah, that's the reason. So just just be aware of that.
Let's be considerate here. He lost his father. So
Um,
be patient.
yeah. So that's FSFO. You have to manage the FMC. Let's see, what else can I tell you? I would very highly recommend getting a flight stick if you don't have one. The whole takeoff sequence, so you lift the aircraft off the ground, you do the whole takeoff roll until LNAV, VNAV, and autopilot engage at about 400 or 500 feet. So you really do need a flight stick. I can't emphasize this enough. It's really not fun doing it without a flight stick. It will really enhance your experience, even if it's an Xbox controller or something like that. As long as you can lift the plane up, it's better than nothing. So I would strongly advise investing in a good flight stick. That'll really help your experience. Now, so TFM is pretty much. Here, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was going to go on to TFM. If you got something to say about the flight stick, then you go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say about the flight stick is,
Yeah.
I don't know if you got yours set up this way or not, Declan, but you can activate voice command, and with what he calls the hot mic, right? That's what that's for. When you hit enter or spacebar on the two voice buttons on First Officer Pro on the main window, and you've got that button set up, you got to go into and set the button up in your sim. Like you go in how you add your hotkeys.
Yes, that's true.
You go in there and you do that. Well, you can do voice commands with it as well, but like you said, either way, the stick is something that you're going to need.
It really is to get it off the ground.
You're going to have a hard time.
You combine that
just
voice thing
keep
to
that
the
in
no
mind.
smoking sign, by the way. Just so you can do it in the sim. You can do that to make it easier. But either way, you don't even have to take your hands off the stick. It should automatically do things. It should automatically turn on autopilot and LNAV and VNAV. But if you do need, and this is pretty much how we've been doing it on Bad Sim, if you do need to change your altitude, your speed, whatever on the fly, you can just leave the mic open and, of course, use the voice commands. And it's very accurate.
Mm-hmm.
It's very accurate. And then that is especially necessary in these planes like the 7.4. Not so much in the 7.4 now because we have the MCP panel, but for some of the panels, and still in the triple, where we don't have the TFM panels completed yet. So you certainly need the voice functionality to set your values. If you're on VATSIM or whatever.
If you set your trim I wonder if you can do your trim like that by voice. Set your trim, before you take off.
I do not know about that actually, but what I will say about trim is we have had major problems with trim. Now the issue with trim is that you of course use it to help you on takeoff, but it can cause the thing with trim is that you have to constantly be adjusting it, especially in the 7.3. And so what would happen is you would take off, the nose would come up too high, and even pushing forward on the stick, you would have problems. So we haven't actually been bothering with trim. I can put that tip out there for people, just because it's very difficult when you're visually impaired to kind of match your trim with the stick and keep it under control. Feel free to experiment with that. You might have more luck with that than we have.
Yeah.
It's still perfectly fine even without trim, I should add. It's still perfectly fine. But what you need to do is use things like attitude mode with TFM to listen to how high your nose is and control. You probably want about, if I was to give you an average rule and this is very average because you're 7.3 to 777 is a lot of difference. Something like 10 degrees nose up. 10 degrees and the 7.3 is pretty good. In the 7.4 and the triple, you're probably going to get like 15 degrees nose up. You don't really want to be going more than that, and you need to manually control that until autopilot comes in. So you will need to obviously pull back to rotate, but then gradually relax your grip on the stick. So don't let the stick go, but just gradually relax as you bring that nose to a steady position and autopilot comes in.
Yeah, 'cause if you keep it pulled back, it's going to go up to like 14, 15, 16. So I pull it back, and then right after I pull it back, I let it kind of, move forward a little bit, and I try to just hold it there because you don't got to hold it long. Because once you get to 400 feet, I think it takes over anyways.
Yeah, the autopilot will have
Is
it
it 400, 500? I forget, but
you can
yeah.
customize that. You can change it in FSFO. You can change when the autopilot comes in, but yeah, I usually have it about 400.
Another thought we could do, if you guys want us to, we could always put the setting config file. We could always make it available to where it's set to where, hey, this is where it works best, and then you could just download that and just copy it in.
Yeah, that's a very good
if you're
idea.
having trouble,
Yeah.
Not that we're trying to hold your hand, because we don't want to hold your hand, but with that's something that I think we can all kind of nod in agreement that, yeah, that's something that's understandable.
That would be very useful, because there's a lot of stuff that you have to set up with the PMDG when you initially purchase and install it. I will just say a quick note on that. I know there's a couple people who've been trying to crack the thing and then saying, why is it not working? Why is this sound, blah, blah, blah. If you crack it, you're not going to get any support from PMDG, or indeed, really from anyone. Like it's your own risk if you go cracking the PMDG. Yeah. But
my gosh, I heard the same thing.
Yeah.
About cracking, and it's like, guys, this program's not that expensive. And not only, let me just ask you, and then we'll move on. But let me ask you a question. If you've used First Officer Pro, is it really not worth it to you?
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly
this guy's
the question,
got a program that, if it's not worth it to you, and you don't want to fly, then don't get it. But we can't help you otherwise.
It's all about bang for your buck, pretty much. And there's no doubt PMDG is expensive. The whole lineup probably comes to like $400 or $500. It's certainly expensive, and not everyone can afford that, depending on your situation. Get one aircraft, like even if you just get the 738, 739 base pack, and then a couple months later you get the expansions. So be it. I mean, And here's the thing, FSFO, right? And I cannot emphasize this enough, because I've heard this argument. Well, this is my opinion again, and this is not a fact. So this is my opinion, but it's all about worth. And in my opinion, FSFO is worth it, because it comes with a great deal of aircraft, not just PMDG, but other aircraft as well, which I know we can't use right now, and who knows if we ever will be able to. But PMDG, it comes with all of them, and it's a lot. It's actually not very expensive in comparison to Multicrew and all these other similar kind of add-ons. So I would say, in terms of bang for your buck, in my opinion, it's the PMDG with FSFO is a great experience, and it is 100% worth it. FSFO. So watch some videos. The guy has videos.
Oh yeah, right on his page, as a matter of fact, I believe that's where I learned about it.
Yeah, make up your own mind.
Well,
don't
George,
take it from me, but
pass it to me. But
yeah,
my opinion too on this as well, Declan, and I'm going to just say this: if you're going to, if you can only afford one plane, don't jump to the 47 or the 777. Start with, because if you get the 737-900 ER, that's an extended range, so you can do a longer flight with that. So you've got a fairly not super expensive jet, and you can do a longer flight with it than just a regular 737-800. So, but again, opinion. That's all it is. So
Yeah, like I
you
say, it's
guys
my
got to
opinion.
decide.
Go make up your own. Go see if you can find the manual. I think the manual for FSFO's out there, and there's a lot of videos on his channel where he's doing demonstrations of it. So you go watch those videos. Don't like I said, this is factual. So don't just take my opinion for it, but you got to make up your own mind. I personally think it's worth every penny. So a few caveats on the PMDG. I'm trying to think of something else, but so TFM currently does not read the ILS. So when you do get to your first approach and you turn approach mode on, you will hear FSFO saying LNAV is off, which means you have the localizer, and VNAV is off, which means you have the glide. But you will not hear the needles being read to you to determine whether you're on the glide slope or not. And whether you're on the localizer or not. So don't worry about that. That is a known thing, and hopefully will be coming. But but if you're on VATSIM, remember you can always ask the controller whether you're on course, and I'm sure they'll be able to tell you. But this is certainly for more advanced users. You're not going to be on VATSIM doing approaches. When you first get the aircraft, that's for sure. Don't even try.
Yeah, and when you hear it say that you're on approach, and you hear it say, I forget what it says, but as soon as it says that, do your checklist for descent. I forget exactly what they say, but you want to do that checklist as well, because that's going to change some settings for you. You got to follow them checklists. I do
That's
know
a
that.
very good point,
Now, I've not
yeah.
flown it much, so don't listen to everything I'm saying 100%, but Declan can correct me too if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure you want to follow those checklists and do them in the right order.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So the checklists have flows attached to them. So, for example, after you do the pre-flight checklist, there's a flow attached, and it will begin doing that flow once the checklist is finished and setting up the aircraft. So a lot of people have had issues and said, oh, FSFO is not doing X, Y, or Z. Now, it's possible that there's a bug, but it's also equally possible that you're not doing the flows or the checklist in the right order. It's very important that you do that, otherwise you are liable to have problems because it's not got a system set up. So in the Notepad file, we have an order that you need to do the checklists at different stages of flight. So there's a pre-flight, there's a before start, there's a taxi, there's a before takeoff, there's an after takeoff, there's a descent and a landing. There's all these checklists, and if you don't do them, FSFO can't guarantee you're not going to have issues. So that's where this little file will help you.
Yeah, because it's going to tell you when to do those. Like, for example, the pre-flight. You do that with, well, I do that with my door open. When the door's still open, I do the pre-flight.
Yeah, pretty much. You can. It doesn't really matter whether you do it when it's open or not, but as long as you do it before you.
Okay, so that doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah. And there's also a briefing in FSFO, a full briefing you have to fill out. You have to import your flight plan. You have to give it all the details. Because someone might say, okay, well, I'm on approach and it's not tuning the ILS. Well, yeah, you got to do the briefing. So that's another little thing that we can cover. Because the briefing dialogue is quite complicated. Well, it looks complicated. In reality, there's only a couple boxes you really need to fill out for it to work. But it's not fully labeled up. I'm sure that's something the developer could address, but it's not fully labeled up. But just give it a couple goes and you'll easily figure out, if you're a competent NVDA user or
I can definitely tell you, like, the V1 and VR and those, leave them alone. Because the way that it's those settings, it's going to do it on its own anyways. You don't got to do anything with the V1 or them 3 boxes, because the settings already pretty much have that in the system. It already knows what to do with it, pretty much, from my understanding. I don't know if that's what how you have yours or not, Declan, but
I believe so. Yeah.
I don't put anything in those.
No, yeah, the majority you
but
can leave
we can put
alone.
that file up there. We can put a file up for you guys though if you're having trouble, and you can just paste it in and bam, you don't even got to worry about it. Well, you still got to do your briefing though. You always got to do your briefing because you gotta import your flight plan. So don't forget that.
Yeah,
You got to do
I
that.
would import the flight plan. I would set up your runways that you're going to use. I would tell it to, make sure it's set to tune your ILS and download the weather. Um, Make sure you set your flap settings, auto brake settings. You've got to let it know these things because again, people say, "Oh, it didn't set my auto brakes." Yeah, did you set the auto brakes in the dialog? So, but again, all this will be in the Notepad file because there's things that as VI users we might need these Notepad files and tutorials for, and I'm perfectly happy to do for, screen reader issues and FSFO's layout with a screen reader.
Yeah.
I'm not so happy doing tutorials for, a full tutorial on how to fly PMDG 737 because it's kind of like, well, they're already out there, and in general, TFM's layout of the FMC. This is the original FMC that Jason had done and that has been followed. This layout is good because it follows the exact layout of an FMC in the aircraft. This has been pointed out by the TFM devs, and they're absolutely right to point this out. So what that means is when you listen to these tutorials and someone says, okay, you need to put this text in left soft key, whatever, one left, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can go, okay, I need to go to this soft key and I need to find that bit of text and I need to put it in, and you can follow what they're doing. So that part, it doesn't matter whether you're visually impaired or sighted, you can follow those tutorials.
And there's an update too, if you guys didn't get it, I think maybe a week ago or so, with First Officer Pro, there was an update for that program as well. I don't know if everybody knows that or not, but you need get that update, and that's going to, I forgot exactly what he fixed in it, but he did fix some stuff. So it's not like this guy's not changing stuff to make it better, because he definitely is.
Oh, he's active, yeah. He's very active. He's very responsive on the forums. Like I say, there might be a bit of a delay right now, but he is on the forums. He is active and been helping people in the community.
I forget what the upgrade was for. Do you remember?
I don't remember the things. I know he
something.
fixed the. I think he fixed the 7.3 and the ground power problem. That was one of them.
Yeah, yeah.
But there might have been some others.
Yep.
I didn't look, to be honest with you.
So, and one more tip, and then I'll go back to you, Declan, is let's say you're going to do more than one flight. You don't have to do code and dark every flight. You can do a flight, and then let's say you're wanting to do another one after that. First Officer Pro will, it's going to know when, if it's code and dark, it's going to treat it like you've not flown it all day.
It will do all the tests and everything, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you say do a flight and then you're going to do another one in 30 minutes, just leave the jet running, and then First Officer is going to treat it like it's not the first flight of the day. So, just something to think about. Could someone try to tell me you can't do more than one flight without restarting it every time? That you're wrong. I'm just going to tell you you're wrong, because you can. You can. It's not like I don't know, maybe freeware. I guess you I don't know where they're getting at, but you can do more than one flight. You don't got to restart everything. Not that I know of, anyways.
No, you don't have to. It's been a work in progress. Initially, we didn't know how to do it, but now we do. You can spawn over to a stand and connect the ground power, or indeed, just leave the aircraft on APU power and do a setup and do another flight. What I will say though with FSFO,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, be careful when you do spawn. I'm giving people advice there, when you spawn over to a stand, it is liable to crash. So it's had quite a few incidents on BatSim where we've spawned over to the runway as the request to the controller and said, okay, FSFO, before takeoff checklist, it just crashes, disappears, gone. And so Then you have to say, yeah, excuse me, controller, we're going to need an extra 2 minutes on the runway whilst we reset up our briefing and our software because FSFO has just crashed out on
Oh,
us.
shit.
That happens quite a bit,
That's too
and it's a
funny,
bug.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So the same thing can happen when you spawn
Oh,
to a
gosh.
stand, and then you end up, the FSFO when you restart it, it doesn't always detect. It'll think you're trying to start the plane up again, and you're like, no, I'm trying to shut it down now. Can you, it gets confused. So that is something the developer needs to look at. The crashes when you reposition the aircraft. It doesn't always happen, but it it does, and it's not
Now
a
I
great
know,
look.
yeah, and I know that George, he'll actually, if he's just messing around today and playing around, he will do a flight and then he'll just go back through and just put it back to code and dark and not necessarily restart the sim and all that, but then go back to code and dark because once you do that, first officer's going to recognize that it's back to code and dark, and it should. Now I say should, it doesn't mean it's going to for 100%, but um, you should be good that way too. So if you like the code and dark thing and you kind of got a system going there for yourself like that, then by all means do what works best for you. But generally there's only one way to fly the plane though. You got to do it a certain way, and that's just the way you got to do it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
No, but that's
so
a good point about it. We will certainly upload our options files because you can have all sorts of options, including your startup panel state. And I know we all have it set to cold and dark for the startup panel, but there's also other little things in there that we have tweaked to help the aircraft stabilize on takeoff. For example, there's a setting, where if you're pulling back on the stick, the autopilot won't engage because it thinks that you're trying to manually fly, the aircraft and make an input to it. Um, Now we obviously turn that off because that's not what we want. We want the autopilot to just come on regardless. So there's some little tweaks in there that newbies might not know about. So if we upload those files, they can literally just go copy paste. There you go, fire up your aircraft, and you can get going with your learning process and not have to mess around asking people for what these little tweaks are. So that will be useful, I think. We'll perhaps make a PMDG shared Dropbox folder or something like that, and just link it on the website. And because the good thing about that is that anyone can put things in there. Either that or we've got to sort out people's permissions on the site. But either way, you'll have access, and we can give new people access if they have files that they have created that are good. But it'll be a simple case of just copy paste these settings files into your PMDG.
yeah, because you don't want to have and I might be saying the name wrong. I know you want to have that turned off, cross steering or what's that? Something steering. You want that off too because that will affect the way that you fly as well. I can't remember what it's called. Or you know what I'm talking about, Declan? It's got to do with the self steering or whatever. It's like another kind of automated steering that it does within the. I think it's in the sim setting maybe. And if that's on, it's going to fly differently than if it's off. And I forget what it's called.
Possibly, I
Um,
don't know. But if we've changed it, it'll be in one of
Basically,
those.
when you're flying, so when it's on, basically what it means is, let's say that you're wanting to stay in autopilot, but you're wanting to maybe turn a little bit with your stick or something. You can do it when it's on that other setting. It's got something to do with the steering. It's a setting for steering. I forget what it's called, but either way, it'll be set the right way with these files because they'll have the settings exactly the way that they should be.
Yeah, you'll have the
So,
sound outside of the sim because you'll notice you get no
yeah.
sound when you leave the sim. Just little things like that that you won't have to mess around with. So we'll put these files up there. We'll put a tutorial up there of sorts. Just a Notepad file. It won't be super in depth. If you want a super in depth, go and look at the tutorial 1 and tutorial 2 that come with the aircraft. They will definitely help you get things set up FMC wise as well, give you a little bit more depth, because what you've got to understand as well is there's so many modes on this aircraft. So you've obviously got LNAV and
Oh
VNAV,
man.
which handle the autopilot,
Yep.
but you've also got level change mode. You've got your vertical speed mode. You've got altitude intervene, speed intervene, all these automated different modes. And what I will say is that PMDG has a very great keyboard manager where you can go and add hotkeys. So I'll give you a brief explanation here. So, for example, altitude intervene. What is altitude intervene? It's basically if you have a restriction on your SID and the aircraft is sat at 5,000, and ATC say, okay, cancel restriction, climb to you know 20,000, 200. So what you do is you press the altitude intervene hotkey, which for me I set mine up as Alt A. Hit Alt A. Once you've changed your flight level, and the aircraft will then begin climbing past the restriction because you've given it permission to climb. So that's how you can set hotkeys up. There's a whole bunch that you can change, and TFM has some of these as well. It has, for example, altitude intervene in the panel, but of course, if you press for time, just hitting a hotkey is going to be a lot easier in that sense.
Now, where do they find them hotkeys for the PMDG stuff? How can they get to those?
They're going to be in PMDG options. So you'll go to the main menu on the CDU and you'll go to PMDG options, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in PMDG options. Unfortunately, the hotkeys I don't believe are contained in the options files, so I can't, it won't just be able to be copied and then you'll have the hotkeys. But of course, that's probably for the best because you all have different keyboards, and so you can go set up your own. But you can go to keyboard and you'll see all different categories. You'll see auto flight, you'll see electronic systems, all the different categories of systems and areas that you'll need. Mainly auto flight is probably the what area that you're going to want to set the most hotkeys, but just do a little bit of exploring again. You just got to apply your own initiative, really. And
Yeah.
to that
Now, let me
section.
ask you, Declan, speaking of sound, because I absolutely think the sound is absolutely amazing with the 47. Those engines sound so good, man, on the 47. What do you think? How do you like them sounds on the 747?
Oh, the sounds on all the PMDG are great. They're really great engine sounds, and you'll notice that a lot of the freeware aircraft, the sound packs that we have are great, but they're a little bit too overdone. Like even at cruise, you can still hear the engines roaring away, when what you'd really hear is kind of just that gentle kind of wind sound in the background. And PMDG has got a great blend between the engines and the wind. I was watching a 777 video the other day, a cockpit video on justplanes.tv, and it matches the PMDG 777 cockpit exactly. Everything matched. So it might sound a bit different to what people are used to, but you can be sure that all of these sounds are taken directly from the planes, and you can tell because the 7.4, for example, that cockpit sounds older. It sounds a bit more archaic, and then you jump in the triple and it sounds a bit more modern. So you can hear these different things. It's great.
I like that slight hum that you get too. You can hear that slight whistle in the background when it's doing its descent, and when it's climbing, you can hear that whistle, and it's really good sound. They did an amazing job with it. They really did.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, to round off PMDG, it's been a really interesting few months. We've had for us who've been flying it on VATS, and we've had kind of the aircraft, the great work that they've been doing at TFM to help us at least access the CDU. To the great work that FSFO has done to help with system support, and it's just been a real learning curve. We've had some frustration, but you will have that with anything. I will say, interestingly, the FSFO developer is planning to add the CDU support as well for the 7.3, and I believe the Aerosoft A320 he's going to look at, which will be very exciting. That this will be quite a bit down the road.
Man.
So
yeah, and
yeah,
it's not just I agree with you, Declan, that this is something that who could not be happy right now? We were talking about the crack stuff earlier. Who could not be happy right now? We are doing something that we have been waiting for a very long time, and this has never been before. This has never been before. So I'm giving thumbs up to PMDG, to TFM, and also to Flight Officer Pro, because it just works. So people stop cracking stuff. Like, either buy it or don't fly it. Seriously, that's it.
Yeah, it's been great for the community because we had the whole FS 2020, hype, and then it turned out to be nothing. The real letdown from Microsoft, the lack of accessibility, and the still lack of any concrete planes because the sim is still very, very new. But I have got to say that and this was pointed out the other day by someone, I believe it was Rob, but this PMDG setup that we have now is pretty much what we had wanted FS 2020 to be like. It's obviously got the great sounds of PMDG with the system depth, and there's really nothing we can't do in the PMDG in terms of flying it like a sided sim, and you watch a stream or video, and finally we can pretty much do what they're doing. I mean, there might be a couple panels we still can't access due to PMDG licensing problems. I know that has happened with the ICAS panel, for example, but by majority we can access everything in that cockpit, and that's great. And so that's FS 2020 was a real downer for the community. This is more than we could have wanted from 2020 because it's allowing us to fly in such more realism. And there's still more to come. Like I say, it's not perfect. There are things, ILS being a massive one, that we're still a little bit dodgy, but we've made massive strides forward, and we're still just ironing out some of the key elements of flight. It's nowhere near finished. Don't think that at all. But we are at least now able to begin the PMDG era and payware era of making payware flights.
And to close out on my end anyway with PMDG, I just want to remind people that, listen, this is very important, and I know Dec's going to agree with me. When you go to learn this, take your time and learn the FMC step by step. And what I mean by that is start out and learn the fuel and payload. Learn that first and do that over and over until you've got that to where you can go in and you know it by heart what to hit. Kind of like the cold and dark. I mean, I know that like the back of my hand now. It's just, it's F10, F8, F1, Alt-E, right? You need to learn everything like that. Be able to say that stuff in your mind, and I promise you're going to have fun flying these jets. I'm not perfect yet. I've not had time. But that's the way you should learn it, in steps. So, again, thumbs up to PMDG. You guys have done an amazing job, and everybody else has been working hard. So.
Yeah, the whole bunch of them working together. And as I say, check back in I don't know, maybe give it 2 weeks or so. I'm going to be busy next week with the final week of college, and then after that, I'll be able to start perfecting this Notepad file along with a couple of other people who are really familiar with the PMDG. And I'm well aware, guys, that people want tutorials, and I'm sure everyone and their dog in the BVI community is going to start doing a PMDG tutorial. But at the end of the day, if you can put some initiative into it and some time and some real kind of studying, you'll get further, because that's how we've done this. We've had to investigate and troubleshoot and this is where we've got to. So we'll give you some tidbits of information and some really useful kind of blind pilot tips, but you just got to investigate a bit yourself. So maybe check back in 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have a PMDG article or section or whatever it's called published up on the site with a link or some little tutorials. And of course, always feel free if you have a very specific question. Don't just email the podcast and say, how do you fly the PMDG? I'm not going to be able to tell you that. If you've got a very specific question, we're going to have now how do I hook the PMDG up to my home heating? We're going to have round 2 of that. But no, like if you've got a very specific question, like you're already in the PMDG and you want to, where is this in the FMC, or what, can you help me with this page of the FMC? Drop us an email, and Johnny can remind me, because I think we changed the email address, did we not? And we did tell them.
Yeah, it's just you got to add the at the beginning.
Yeah, now. That's it. Yeah, so ignore the old one.
The thebvipilotspodcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So drop an email and one of us will pick it up. Yeah.
And God forbid, Declan said this. We better not get an email on putting a heater in the cockpit or hooking up a heater from the house, or something, because we've been down that road. We've done a video on that, and don't go there, homie. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Oh, but yeah, it's what we're here for. You got questions, fine, but keep it real. Keep it realistic.
Yeah, don't just say how do I fly the PMDG, or like I say, it's got to be a specific question. Otherwise, if you're very new to this and you're really not sure, the best thing you can do is read tutorials, just hold fire, and I'm sure there'll be things coming out. As I say, there'll be something on the website that we'll put up, and then you should be able to go and get it all.
I mean, if you're having trouble, man, like if you're having trouble with something, this is what I hate. It's someone emailing and they'll just be like, and it's just an example. Hey, I tried to land in Chicago and I couldn't land. Then that's it.
Yeah, it's like
okay, there could be like a whole list of problems. Like, give us a list of stuff that's going on, or we can't answer it, right? Like, give us something. Don't do that. Like, my gosh, we got to have detail to be able to help you. So. Try to be specific, but don't be crazy about it.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's about as much as we can say on the PMDG without telling people, without going through a tutorial. So, the only other thing I had on the list here was a very small thing, but it could be useful to someone. I just wanted to point this out. So, Johnny was basically looking for a weather add-on to work with P3D, because ActiveSky was having some issues, and I pointed him to fsrealwx, which is a paid add-on that can do real-world weather, and you buy it once and you get it for pretty much all the simulators, and it was very accessible. Actually, it had some pretty cool dialogues where you could see all your weather, and I believe it has some basic things like a flight planner as well, which I have never tried, but interesting that it comes with those. It's an alternative to ActiveSky, basically.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a lot you can do with it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, whether it's better than ActiveSky, I don't know. I certainly know that ActiveSky can hook up to the PMDG better. For example, with the PMDG and ActiveSky, you can do a wind uplink request, so you can send a request to ActiveSky, basically, and the winds for your flight will be sent back from ActiveSky to the PMDG. I don't believe WX can do that. So I don't think it's quite as good as ActiveSky, but if you are on a budget, and if you are like me, I currently use FSX for my freeware, and I currently use P3D for payware, and I would highly recommend using P3D for payware because it's being updated.
Same.
Then it might be interesting to look at WX, but there's nothing wrong with ActiveSky, to be honest with you. It's just accessibility. WX is not a bad one at all, to be fair to it. So if maybe you're just the occasional flyer, you perhaps aren't intending to fly the PMDG, but you're just the occasional flyer who's a bit of an enthusiast, then you might be worth looking at WX because it's just a bit less of a faff. I tell you, I don't like what Active Sky have done with their versions. So you've now got. So I purchased Active Sky for P3D version 4. Was the one I needed. And so I go on the thing and I purchased Active Sky for P3D version 4 and 5. That's what it said. So I try to install it and it says something like, oh, your version of P3D version 4 is not compatible. So I was like, well, this is supposed to be for version 4. Yeah, exactly. And it turned out that the Active Sky version for V4, they had put out a different product that you were supposed to buy. Well, what they basically done was they pulled support for the older versions of P3D on this version, and you had to go rebuy another product basically. So it's very convoluted. There's so many versions.
That's why mine does that. That's why mine. Okay. So yeah, you just answered my question. I got to buy the updated version then.
Yeah, and I had to update P3D. I should have. Yeah.
To me, I mean, I don't mind buying. It's fine. It's whatever. I don't really agree with the way they did it because it's kind of like you're not given a choice, and you're not really being, presented any type of like, okay, if you're going to do that, at least throw us a discount or a little bit of,
Yeah, I don't know if there's a discount. To be honest, I think there is an upgrade discount, but
I don't think there.
I don't even know. There was from Active Sky for FSX to P3D, but I don't know about V4 to V5. There may well not be for that. But it's just silly, I think, when
I don't think there is.
It's a P3D version upgrade, and they're charging you, and then you've got things like WX that just portal simulators. Like, come on, it's very confusing for a new individual when you search up Active Sky, P3D, and you just want to get the one for your sim, and you end up you buy the wrong one, and you got to get a refund. It's very, very confusing.
Yeah. Yep. And cause I went through it even when I first bought Active Sky. I went through that. I got the wrong one. It's like, be clear about this stuff,
Yeah.
Then I buy this other one. I've got the key and all that, and now I go to use it, and I can't because I've got to buy the other version so that it will work now. So, anyway, here's what it is. I'm not going to go get a cracked version and then wonder why it's not working.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. As I say, main focus has been on PMDG, and that's kind of why there's not been as many podcasts because I'm sure we'll come back in 2 weeks to do another one, and there'll be a whole bunch of new stuff. Things are moving quickly, so best places if you really want to keep up with it from the day to day is the WhatsApp group, the Discord, mainly the WhatsApp group. To be honest, the WhatsApp group is crazy. You end up with like 20 messages a day, and it's like listening to a podcast or something each day. But if you really want to keep up with things, that's the place to be. But other than that, obviously the podcast aims to be a summary. Keep a lookout on the website, and other than that, have a great rest of your week, couple of weeks till we speak to you on the next podcast.
Yep, we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.
Yeah, bye.